Hi, and welcome to my book talk number 3. This is a multicultural discussion with one of the books that I've chosen for my 5th grade group of students. My title for this presentation is Everyone is a Little Different in Their Own Unique Way. So we're talking about equity and equality through diversity. And I am Haley Sims. So before I would introduce my book to my students, I would actually have them pair up. It does not matter who they are with. I would suggest that you pair up your students obviously with someone that they'll be productive with and who they will obviously not have an issue with. So I would break them up into pairs. They can stand across from one another, or you could put them around the room, whatever you find best for your specific classroom. So the icebreaker includes you'll need to have M&Ms, or if you don't even do M&Ms, you could do something that is on the lines of the same colors, like even if they were just cut out dots, that works too. Then you'll hand them out at random. Don't have everybody have, if they're partnered, if you give somebody a red, don't have their partner have a red too. Each person in the group or the pairs will need to have a different color. So a red M&M would say, share about your favorite food. Blue is wild or share about anything. Yellow is tell about a hobby you enjoy. Green, share about your favorite movie. Brown, what is your favorite book? Orange, share your favorite animal. The plot twist on this icebreaker is that neither one of the partners is allowed to speak their hobby, favorite food, share anything, any of those. They are not allowed to speak it. Now they have to stay there. They're not allowed to draw anything. That they have to explain to their partner their color M&M. So let's say, for example, their favorite food. If they cannot write it down and they can't speak it, how are they going to show their partner that their favorite food is spaghetti? Well, they could use their hands. They could do signs with their hands. Maybe they could, act like a meatball. I don't know how you do that, but just tell them to be incredibly creative. So the whole point of this icebreaker is that they're not allowed to speak. They have to use anything else besides a pencil, pen, or verbally saying it to one another. All right, so that's your icebreaker. After it's done, they can go sit down and you're going to proceed. All right, so the next thing you're going to do is before you start your book, you're going to talk about diversity and what diversity is. So you're going to look at a really good model would be oh goodness, what is that called? The guy in the middle of the picture, okay? Here we go. So you'll talk about diversity, and everybody might say, oh, diversity is like color generated, black or white or Asian. And yes, however, there's way more in that word than just those top words. All right, so we see race, gender, age, ethnicity, but you'll see underneath the iceberg that there's so many other things that bring up and make up those specific things. All right, so you'll also look to the right and you'll see all the different nationalities. You'll talk to the students about how someone can have different nationalities where they come, meaning if you come from a different place, then their culture is going to be different. So you'll explain to your children the importance of cultural diversity. And then on the left, you'll see that just because you're from a different place doesn't mean that you can't do the same things. You'll notice that, and the picture cut off a little bit, but you'll see that there's a guy also that's going to work that's in a wheelchair. He's still going to work just like everybody else is. So we're talking about equity too, the worth of who you are, even though your background or your culture is different. All right, so just go ahead and make sure that the students understand, and you can do an interactive talk about, and they can give you ideas. Maybe they have personal experiences or they have other types of experiences. Then we're going to move on to our book. All right, so today's book that I've chosen, and it's actually not today's book because it's actually a chapter book, so this is going to have to be done through probably about a week, I would say. I've done it one time and it took us about a week. So today's book is You Don't Know Everything, Jilly P. The author is Alex Gino, and the publisher was Scholastic for 2020. All right, so a little synopsis of what this story is about. Jilly thinks she's figured out how life works, but when her sister Emma is born deaf, she realizes how much she still has to learn. The world is going to treat Jilly, who is white and hearing, differently from Emma, just as it will treat them both differently from their black cousins. A big fantasy reader, Jilly makes a connection online with another fantasy fan, Derek, who is a deaf black ASL user. She goes to Derek for help with Emma, but doesn't always know the best way or time to ask for it. As she and Derek meet in person, have some really fun conversations, and become friends, Jilly makes some mistakes, but comes to understand that it's up to her, not Derek, to figure out how to do better next time, especially when she wants to be there for Derek the most. Within a world where kids like Derek and Emma aren't assured the same freedom or safety as kids like Jilly, Jilly is starting to learn all the things she doesn't know, and by doing that, she is also working to discover how to support her family and her friends. Alright, so that's a large synopsis. However, you can choose for your class if you would like to actually read this or not. I honestly feel like this gives a little bit too much information. I would maybe bring it down a little bit so that you didn't have as much information, because sometimes when you give too much information prior to reading a book, it kind of ruins the book. I don't know, that's me personally. It kind of ruins the book where you're like, oh, well, we already know everything that happens then. So you might want to go ahead and just evaluate your classroom and see how they would do, how your students would react to that, so you can change it or not change it. Alright, so we're going to do a pre-reading activity. This is called title and front cover. On here you'll see that, you don't know everything. Jilly P is our title, and then there's an image of both girls, one having a cochlear implant and then the other one not. Okay, so we're going to put students in groups of 3 to 5. Each group will be given a picture, which is the picture of the front cover, and a title of the book. Together, the students will develop a small summary of what they might think the book will be about based on the title and illustration. So that goes back to probably should hold off on giving any more information about what the book is going to be about. So again, this is kind of more for us as teachers to be able to evaluate what the book is about instead of actually doing that with your students. So yeah, this activity will take 5 to 8 minutes. And students in their groups will share with the entire class after they figure out, based on the cover and based on the title, what they think the book will be about. Again, they have 5 to 8 minutes. It shouldn't take take too long. I, as a teacher, would walk around, listen to conversations, make sure they're productive, make sure that they are not, heavily off of the subject of where they're supposed to be going. And then again, they'll share with the entire class. I put an asterisk on the bottom. It says, do not give the plot away. Read to find out. Don't tell your students what's going to happen in the story. Defeats the purpose. It's not as exciting. Don't do that, okay? So, now we have it during the reading activity, which is going to be our point of view. So, the prompt is, how would it change the story if you as a student rewrote it in a different point of view? So an example would be changed it from first person to third person, or put yourself in the shoes of one of the characters. How would you feel? Alright, so this is just I would say it's a writing activity. You can choose, again, you could choose for your own class if you would prefer to do it verbally, but I would probably choose to do a writing activity with this one. It's going to be short, it's not going to be very in-depth, it's going to be quick, and I would want the entire class to do this as a whole. So I want this individual, quick, maybe on a post-it note, and then we share with the whole class. Alright, and then we have the after reading with our story. So after reading the activity, we're going to do a story map and summarizing, okay? So, we go ahead, you'll need to actually prime your students with having history on how to use a story map. At this point in our school, I would go ahead and have had my story maps going and them using them so that my kids would already be familiar with it. Okay, so you have a story map. You talk about the setting, the characters, the point of view, the climax, the moral, falling action, resolution, conflict and problem, rising action, exposition. Alright, so sometimes in books, there might be a missing thing. So if we don't have a a falling action or a conflict and problem, which in this story we do, um, you can sometimes, omit those. You don't have to necessarily have them on there. So but this is gonna be a story map, and then we're gonna do the summarizing. So once the story map has been created and it is thorough with your students, you're going to move on to summarizing. Again, this is going to be in a writing format, and you're going to inform them that we are summarizing and not rewriting. We don't want any extra information. We don't want any inferencing. We don't want any predictions of what happens after the book. We want a summarization. So make sure the students understand the difference between that. All right, and then we here with our references, and you can see where I pulled all the materials for what we talked about today for book talk number 3. Thanks so much, and I appreciate you listening.